Hey, what's going on, guys? Watomarmelon back again for another market watch. Today is going to be a pretty nice one that's going to be very focused on modern cards. But before we begin, if you guys do enjoy, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and use the affiliate link in the description. Costs you nothing extra, and it does support the channel. So the first one that I wanted to go over is Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf out of the new Legendary Duelist set. This is the most recent release. There aren't a whole lot of collectible cards besides Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf, the ghost rare out of the set. Because it just came out, it's still north of $50. I'm assuming this one's going to drop close to $20. I think it is playable, so it might, stay a little bit higher than that, but still, this isn't one that really tickles my fancy. I don't think it looks particularly good at all. I have no connection to the Salamangreat archetype, and I have no connection to this specific card. So for me, this isn't a huge or a particularly collectible card, but we'll see. It's one that maybe people have played Salamangreat in the past or currently play it and are excited about this card. Might prop up the price, but I'm not expecting a whole lot out of this set at all. Or even this specific card. Next up, we have Magicians of Bonds and Unity. This is supposed to be, the most collectible card out of the new era of Yu-Gi-Oh, where we're going to have these quarter-century secret rares. They're going to be putting Magicians of Bond and Unity in each of the next 4 sets, each with a different background, where the background color matches the booster box colors. So in this case, Duelist Nexus is a green set, so we have a green background for this card. You can see that it's already hit below 200. The price has just really decayed recently. If we look at the 1 month trajectory, we can see that it's come down quite considerably. And if we look at the sales history, it was a bit north of 200 about a week ago, and it's dropped about $5 since then. We'll see where it ends up. I know a lot of people are interested in seeing how this thing does long term. I'm not particularly, I think it's a really nice card, and I think it's interesting that they have, the 4 different variants. But I don't know if this is a card that's going to hold, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Like, I don't see this as a $500 card anytime in the future. Personally, I think that there are a lot of gimmicks that Konami has tried. I think this is an interesting one, but I don't know if there's enough differentiation just in the background to make people want to collect the full set. We'll have to see. Now, this is the first one that releases, so it's always going to be the most expensive unless one of the other boxes is not printed as much. But this is an interesting card, but at $200, I don't know if I'm super interested in it, in purchasing it. Next up, we have Crimson Dragon, one that I think is probably the sleeper of the Duelist Nexus set. I think there are a lot of 5Ds fans out there, and if you're a 5Ds fan, you really need the Crimson Dragon card, because this is kind of, you have all the different Signer Dragons. This is one that hasn't released, but is so crucial to the 5Ds era. And so as a quarter-century secret rare, I think it's actually a pretty nice pickup. Now, it is $135, and I suspect that it's going to come down a little bit even from that. Now, I don't know if this is particularly playable. If this is a playable card, you're going to want to wait until this is no longer a playable card to collect it. And I could see a card like this at around $100, but if you're a 5Ds collector, this is one that I wouldn't be too hesitant to pull the trigger on, because I think that this is something people are going to want to come back to. I think, 3 years from now, when people are really, a lot of people have Signer Dragon collections. And for people who go after the ghost rares of all the different Signer Dragons, this might be an interesting one to add to that collection. Obviously, it's not a ghost rare, but it kind of has its own flavor. And they printed a lot of the Signer Dragons in quarter-century secret rare, in Starlight Rare. And so if they end up printing the remaining ones in quarter-century secret rare or Starlight Rare, this could be part of a new set of the Signer Dragons plus Crimson Dragon. So we'll have to see where it ends up, but I like this one out of Duelist Nexus. Next up, we have a quarter-century secret rare, probably the one that I think people would assume would do a lot better than it has. It's really, it came down considerably since the beginning of the set release, and then it's just kind of fallen out even further from that. We have Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, or the Knight of Dragon Magic, quarter-century secret rare. it's around $50 near mint first edition. Now, I like this card. I think it looks cool. I think it's collectible. I think it's fun. I genuinely do think this is a fun card, and this is one that I'm looking at. But I don't know if it can, because we haven't seen really what quarter century secret rares are going to do, and I always think of these things similar to collector rares because they're actually pretty similar in how difficult they are to pull. They're between a Starlight rare and a collector rare, but they're similar to the collector rare in the sense that they have tons of them out there, right? It's not that this specific rarity, a quarter century secret rare, I believe, is easier to pull than a collector rare out of a specific box. However, there are 25 of them versus 15 of the collector rare, and so it ends up, that they end up being comparable in how difficult they are to pull a specific one. The point being that collector rares in the beginning, when they released Entombed Chaos, were this super high rarity. Everybody wanted them. They were novel, and people were willing to pay huge amounts of money for them. But after they, were released in set after set after set, I still love them and I still collect collector rares, but the novelty wears off and people just say, hey, I'm not super interested in spending all this money on something that, I can get quite easily. I can get the rarity quite easily. This specific collector rare, maybe not, but I think the novelty of quarter century secret rares is starting to wear off, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them start coming down considerably. They have the rarity collection coming out in a couple of months, and that, we'll see what that ends up doing in the market, but that's going to have a ton of collector rares. It's going to have, all kinds of stuff that I think is going to really hurt a lot of these previous iterations of the rarity that were harder to get. And so quarter century secret rare has already seen the Egyptian god cards, which are very easy to get, and the tablet art, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician, and then the Red Eyes alternate artwork. And those were all easy to get, but we'll see what happens once the tins release and there are more of these very collectible cards in this rarity, because I don't know if it can hold on. We'll have to see. More quarter century secret rares, Ipmascarina. Now this one has a Starlight rare, but you can see that this one's really, really nosediving a bit. It hasn't done particularly well for itself. It was trying to hold above 200. Now it's already below 180. We'll see where it ends up. Now, I don't see this as an $80 card anytime soon, but it's one that if you're really into Ipmascarina, you're obviously going to go after the Starlight rare. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these mid rarities, even though this is essentially identical to a Starlight rare, people aren't really going after the mid rarities as much. And all that printing this in a nearly identical rarity has done is it's hurt the price of the Starlight rare, and this one is falling out considerably. I like the idea, of having mid rarities of these super ultra chase cards, especially iconic ones from the modern era like Ipmascarina. I think this would have been an awesome collector rare. Even though it has the Starlight rare, I think having a more middle rarity is good for the card because it gives other modern collectors an opportunity to get it without shelling out 4 figures. The problem is when you print the exact same card twice, the first one is obviously going to lose a lot of its value because there's an exact replica basically, and the second one is not going to hold a ton of value because there's an original print, and so all the high-end collectors are going to flock to the original one. So I'm not a huge fan of how they went about doing this. I would have loved it, or I would have liked it a lot more as a collector rare. Next up, we have Dark Hole, one of the quarter-century secret rares that has not been plummeting, one that has, it started out at under $50 and has gone up. It's approaching $100. Now, I don't know the exact reason for this. Now, if this thing's playable in Edison, I wouldn't be surprised that this thing is doing quite well. The only thing I can think of is that this is an iconic card and it doesn't have a modern high rarity, or its highest rarity before this card is probably the super rare out of LOB first edition, but beyond that, it doesn't have a ultimate rare, it doesn't have a collector rare, it doesn't have a Starlight rare, or any of the other, it doesn't have a ghost rare, for example, and so there's nothing else to really compete with this, and so Konami, great job on picking this, because it shows that when there's nothing to compete with it, it does really well. And so this is a nice pick. The counterpart to that is something like Dark Armed Dragon, where you print it again in another. It just got a printing as a Ghost Rare. You print it again as a quarter century Secret Rare. This is not like Ipmascarina, which was printed, I believe, in 2019, and then you give it a mid-high rarity 4 years later. This is something that got a printing in 2022, I believe, with Ghosts from the Past 2, and then you just print it again in 2023 in another high rarity, and they just sort of compete with themselves. It has an ultimate rare from back in the day. It has an original print, first edition Secret Rare out of Phantom Darkness. There's just not enough people collecting Dark Armed Dragon, I think, to hold this card up high. And so it's dropped down. It's, at $54 right now. We'll see where it ends up, but the one thing is that people might be underestimating how many of any specific quarter century Secret Rare there are. And so for some of these, if they're, completionist collectors or people who just really like the rarity type, maybe it ends up doing quite well. We'll have to see. I'm not convinced. Next up, we have Hard Earth Dragon, one that I don't know why it got a quarter century Secret Rare. It's not like it had a modern high rarity printing, so I guess it's fine in that sense, but I don't know how many Hard Earth collectors there are out there. Now, I love this thing, and this is one that I'm considering buying, so I like it, but I don't know if other people like it. And it has a Ghost Rare that isn't so expensive. The Ghost Rare was, prior to the reprint, probably around $70, $80 in near mint first edition. But now you're seeing, this is an unverified seller at 25, but you have verified sellers at 32. So we'll see where this thing ends up. Hungry Burger Collector Rare. This is one that I said it made no sense that it was at, it tried to stabilize. You can see right here around 50, a little above 50, tried to stabilize around 45. Now it's just falling out completely. You can see that it's $34. Now there's only one left at this price point before there's an unverified at 37. And then a verified at around 40. But again, I think these gimmicks are fun. I like them. I think that it's an enjoyable thing when there's a card that is somewhat iconic, but it hasn't received a high rarity printing like Collector's Rare. But for Hungry Burger, I just don't think there are enough people who care about Hungry Burger to sustain the amount of collector rares that are going to be produced. Now, this is one that I'll pick up in a playset once it's very cheap. It's starting to get there. The big thing is that I'm really waiting for collector rares. I'm waiting for the rarity collection, because I imagine that Konami has shown that they don't care. They will print the exact same card in the exact same rarity. Just look at Vanity's Fiend, a card that got a first edition Ultimate Rare in Cyberdark Impact. They printed the exact same thing. An Ultimate Rare in, I think, one of the Astral or Turbo packs. And so they don't care. And so something like this, I don't think it's going to be in Rarity Collection, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other ones end up in Rarity Collection that already had Collector Rares, and they get another Collector Rare. Konami does that on the OCG side, and we're taking on this sort of OCG style printing. OCG has some great things where it's easier to get rarities in the OCG, but it also has some dumb things where they print the exact same card in the exact same rarity over and over and over again. Monster Reborn has how many collector rare printings in the OCG? Too many. And it's identical. I just don't understand that. And so I'm not really trying to pick up collector rares in huge numbers before the rarity collection comes out. To a certain extent, for all modern cards, I'm not really trying to pick up too many until we see what the rarity collection actually does to the market, because I think it's going to annihilate some of these modern collectible cards, because it's just going to be so easy to get collector rares, so easy to get mid rarities on them, that a lot of people are going to say, why am I spending $30 for something that I can get in a pretty comparable rarity for $5? And so I'm expecting it to do some damage. Animadorn Archosaur, this is another really cool one. I can see that someone has them at 22. This is quite enticing. Once we start getting down towards 20 for cards like this, I don't think it's going to get another high rarity printing. And this is one that I really like the artwork. I love the texture for this collector rare, so this is one I'm looking at. Gate Guardian, another gimmick card that is not playable at all, under 25 as a collector rare. I just don't see how this one, even though Gate Guardian's iconic, it's just not something that's going to sustain a price point that's very high, because it's not playable at all. Blackluster Soldier, Legendary Swordsman, this is one that has fallen out considerably. If we go back a little bit further, this was one of the cards at the top of the set for Maze of Memories. Now it's already below 25. It's Cool card. I think the artwork, I wish that it took up more of the space or it was a different stance for the Blackluster Soldier. Now, this is kind of nitpicking. I just don't think that the art is that great for it. But it's still a Blackluster Soldier card, and you can see that it's not like this price point is going anywhere. If anything, it's going to go down considerably because you see there's 9 for this seller, 2, 2, 4. All of these sellers are below 25. And so it's just, there's no world where this thing doesn't continue going down unless there's a huge buyout or support is announced. Dual Academy. This is one that I like. If you're a GX fan like myself, I just like having this card. But it is very, very cheap. $12.43. Next up, we have Cyber Dragon Ghost Rare. Goes from the past 2. Again, this card, maybe it bounces up again. It bounces down again. I don't know. There was a sale at 65, so I don't really trust that much. You can see that this seller has 3 of them at 42, 3 of them at 42. This card's coming down. Why is it coming down? One, there are just so many printed at it goes from the past 2. And then the other thing is that there's a quarter century secret rare coming out, which might be the larger factor. And just like Dark Armed Dragon, it's just going to continue hurting the price. We have Dark Magician Girl Ghost Rare out of Ghost from the past 2. Near Mint First Edition has been selling around 158. You can see, there are a ton more from Gamer's Choice at that price. It's a cool looking card. I think that this is one that there's always going to be a market for a Ghost Rare Dark Magician Girl, but the supply is high enough that if they keep printing Dark Magician Girl in high rarities, this is not going to be the preferred rarity because there's always going to be a new carrot in front of Dark Magician Girl collectors. And so while this is a really cool rarity, I love Ghost Rares. Not everyone does, especially with the newer Ghost Rares. And I think there's been kind of this collective mind think that Ghost Rares are now bad. Ever since Ghost from the past 2 hit, I think there's been a general pessimism surrounding the Ghost Rares in Yu-Gi-Oh! That wasn't there prior to Ghost from the past 2 releasing, and so I don't know what's going to happen to Dark Magician Girl, but it's a very collectible item, and we'll see. It's just if they keep printing it, they release a new rarity, if they put this as a collector rare, it's just, you can't have everything be expensive. They're direct substitutes in an economic sense. And so if one goes up, the other is probably going to go down, and then the other one's just going to go down. Purely. You guys know what I'm saying. I can't pronounce it, but it's a fun little one out of OTS 22. $41. It's going to go down. It was just released less than a month ago, so it's going to go down. Fallen Albaz out of OTS 19. This is one I'm kind of surprised at how cheap it is. This is one that I'm looking at a little bit. Especially look at the texture on that thing. It looks kind of cool. And so I'm not a huge fan of sort of the more anime style artworks, but this one is one that I think looks kind of cool. And then we'll round it out with the iconic Mobius the Frost Monarch, easily tied for my favorite card of all time. You can see there was a sale at $149 for a Near Mint First Edition. There actually have been a lot of sales. I think this is a card that you can play in your side deck. In Edison, it's definitely a card you can play in your side deck or main deck for GOAT format, and you can see that there are more at 149, more at 150. Not a ton of sellers, but the sellers who have them have a ton of them. So I can't imagine that their supply is going to be depleted anytime soon. So that's all I had today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. As always, click the affiliate link. Stay tuned for more videos, and I'm going to have a market index video up again. Make sure to check that one out. It kind of tracks the entire market in a more quantitative way, and hopefully it's going to be a short video this time because I don't have to sort of explain every card that goes into the calculation. But it's been your boy Watomarmelon, and peace out.